Welcome to the TUE Brew review. This week we are checking out Never a Dill Moment. This is a dill pickle kettle sour ale, and this is made by Public Brewing Company out of Kenosha, Wisconsin. So, gosh, it was at least a couple years ago. I had done a review on basically it was kind of like a Bloody Mary modeled beer, and it had a huge dill pickle aspect to it. And I have a friend, Patty, who really likes the taste of dill, and she has always been asking, hey, have you run across a dill pickle beer? Well, here it is. So that's not the same one I reviewed from a couple years ago. That was, as I said, that was a Bloody Mary beer from, I believe, the Cincinnati area. So this is a straight up dill kettle sour from a brewery that's been around for about a decade now, up in Kenosha. So sour beers. What makes them sour is the addition of a probiotic bacteria called lactobacillus, or some people will say lacto. And basically that bacteria, it turns sugars into lactic acid. And lacto is found in all kinds of food products, namely yogurt and sauerkraut, and of course, it's made its way into beer. Now, back in the day, before we really understood how all these microbes worked, a lot of beers were either fermented in wooden barrels where there was a lot of funky bacteria that was in the wood, because you can't really fully clean wood out like you can stainless. And plus there was a lot of airborne bacteria. And that bacteria would often get into the beer and create some of this lactic acid, along with some other funky, unique flavors. In fact, if you have some of the Belgian farmhouse beers, you will get some of those wacky, sour, musty, earthy flavors. But that is a different beer review altogether, because this is a kettle sour. And this is the beer style that's become very popular these last few years. In fact, I would argue that if you go to your local beer-centric tap, you will see just about as many kettle sours on the tap lines as you do IPAs, which is saying something. Now, most kettle sours are cut with fruit or something sweet, but this one's going in a different direction. This one is actually leaning into the sour character of the kettle sour by adding pickling spices. And the reason it's a kettle sour is because they will add lactobacillus right into the steel kettle, and you get a much quicker fermentation, or that quicker reaction of the lactobacillus turning the sugars into acid, and you get really more bright, refreshing sour flavors. You don't kind of get the earthy, musty, complex flavors that you do in some of the Belgians, which take longer to age. These tend to turn around and get their tart flavor pretty fast. So this is indeed a kettle sour. So let's get into this. We've got a 16-ounce can. Love the dill pickle on the can. Lots of just information here about the brewery. I think I said, yeah, ABV. It's only 4% ABV. So very, very light and crushable. And most kettle sours are lower in ABV because the lactobacillus has chewed up a lot of the sugars. And they've got some really cool information. Again, I'm not going to read all that, but that does talk about how this brewery's made a commitment to sour beers. They've actually said they've got a couple of their stainless steel tanks that are dedicated to just making sour beers. So they are in it to win it. Let's check this guy out. All right, so we got a nice, kind of a little bit cloudy, straw yellow pour. A little bit of haze in there, which is I get to probably be expected with a sour, and you get a white, very carbonated, foamy head that looks like it's dissipating fairly quickly. Oh yeah, so aromatics, not too much dill, just like a hint of dill, but really get a lot of briny. You can smell the sour, you can smell the brininess. There's a little bit of dill there. Cheers. So the dill is coming through definitely on the flavor, but not overpowering. It's really, I wouldn't really call this sour. I call it more like a tangy. It's got a nice restrained sourness. And yeah, really getting the dill and some caraway seed in there as well. Yeah, it's I said tangy is the word that, once again, that comes to mind. Kind of like a kind of a buttery sweetness. May have some residual sugars in there, and also a little bit of a malt heft. But in terms of body, it's very light, crisp. Very effervescent, as you can tell. It's got a champagne-like effervescent, and it's got kind of, you get the tartness in the finish, but you also get some of the dill, and again that caraway seed comes in, so the spices linger a little bit. But overall, finish is very clean and very, frankly, very pleasant. I gotta say, I like dill pickles. I don't love them, but I don't mind them. And I tell you what, I really like this beer because the dill pickle character, I mean, it's there, but it's not overpowering. This is a kettle sour that has dill pickle essence to it. It's not in your face. It's got surprisingly good balance, especially after I had that second sip and it kind of cut your palate acclimates to the sour. Boy, this is very refreshing and very drinkable. I really like the nice bright flavors in here. When I first looked at this, I'm like, man, I got 16 ounces of this, but I'm not going to have any problem tackling this. This is surprisingly good. I really like this beer. So glad I tried it. Thanks for making me seek this out, Patty. So there you have it. If you can find this beer at your local retailer or go straight to the brewery, I definitely recommend it. Never a Dill Moment, a dill pickle sour ale from Public Craft Brewing Company out of Kenosha. Cheers.